It's the biggest game of the season, treble chasers versus the Italian Giants, a one-off game where anything can happen. Welcome back to the Inmr podcast, where today we'll be talking about the 2023 Champions League final. Every year it's always the biggest game in European football. Inter Milan, of course, have already won this trophy 3 times in their history, whereas City never have. For City, this is just their second appearance in the Champions League final. The last one, of course, was in 2021, where they lost to Chelsea. Both have just come off the back of a big title win. City beat United to win the FA Cup, and Inter just beat Fiorentina to win the Coppa Italia. In terms of Inter Milan's semi-final games, they played a 5-3-2 in both games, and obviously when attacking that becomes a 3-5-2. This means that they were able to create loads of overloads going forward, and then in transition they were strong defensively when called upon and had plenty of men back. In the second leg especially, they had a brilliant defensive performance which kept the aggregate lead. It worked perfectly, and I think if they can replicate that again, they could give City a hard time in terms of scoring. City against Madrid, second leg was total domination, obviously 5-1 on aggregate. They did seem unstoppable, to be fair. 3-2-4-1 has been their go-to this season, with John Stones and Rodri in the midfield, a really good duo which has been a key part of how City tick this year. John Stones in that new role has totally changed his game and, in my opinion, has become one of the best players in the Premier League since adapting to this new role under Pep. A player to watch from City, in my opinion, is going to be Jack Grealish. I'm trying not to go for players that are obvious. So Jack Grealish, he created 9 chances over both semi-finals. Maybe Inter are going to be more focused on not letting Haaland through or not giving De Bruyne too much time on the ball. And Grealish is a tricky player who could potentially capitalise on this. He's really grown into his role under Pep this season, as obviously John Stones has as well. He doesn't seem like the pressure gets at him so much. We've seen it in the Euros and big competitions. He doesn't seem to let the moments get to him, and this would be a brilliant occasion for him to prove himself. For Inter Milan, I've chosen Çalhanoğlu. He won the most duels in the semis and was the most successful dribbler as well. He makes himself a massive nuisance in that midfield, and then once he's got the ball, he's really good at making a quick transition and creating a chance for his team. He has 1.5 key chances per game, and in a game where Inter are the underdogs, he'll need to play well to create something for his side, as he is the main player that usually does that for them. As long as he keeps creating chances, it should only be a matter of time before Dzeko, Lukaku or Martinez turns one of them into a goal. Looking at strengths and weaknesses of both sides, City, obviously, they've got a bunch of depth and a great playing style. They make it really difficult to get the ball off them, and when you do, City often win it back very quickly. They will most likely dominate the game and will put a lot of pressure on that back 5 of Inter. They're going to demand a lot from them and see if they can hold firm for 90 minutes. Inter, I think, are going to try and go a bit more defensively, so City are just obviously going to be very relentless and try and break them down to get that goal. Weakness for City, I think, is they don't always take their chances. Creating a lot of chances is obviously a strength they've got, but in games you also see them miss quite a lot. Inter are, of course, a strong defensive unit, and as I said, will play defensively and then try and nick a goal, and if City don't take those chances, they could end up regretting it. Inter's strengths, they're really good at pressing from the front. Against AC Milan, Martinez and Dzeko started a really aggressive press from the front, which the midfield then backs up. This meant that the Inter wing-backs could push up and challenge the AC Milan full-backs. Because of this, Inter won the ball back loads in AC Milan's defensive third, which allowed them to have 8 dangerous recoveries, meaning that throughout the game, there were 8 times where they won the ball back and then had a shot within 20 seconds of regaining possession. So I think if they do that with City, obviously City are going to dominate the ball a lot, but if they press forward, if they decide not to go totally defensive and try and do this heavy press, then they can catch them out. A weakness for Inter is that on paper, they just lack the quality. I was going to make a combined 11, but obviously man for man, on paper, City are just better in every department. Their players are consistent, effective, efficient. City are just the best of the best at the minute. And we've seen this before where it doesn't always matter, as one-off games don't care about who's better on paper. Teams like Ajax and Spurs have shocked everyone. However, this City side are in immense form, and I think the quality that they do have is going to overwhelm Inter. My predicted lineup for City is Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Akanji, Stones, Rodri, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, Grealish and Haaland. It's unchanged from the semi-final and the FA Cup final. It's a proven team. Why would you fix something that isn't broken? If it's going well, don't try and tweak it and make it that little bit better. It is one of the best teams in Europe, there is no point trying to swap a little something, because that's when you could get caught out, because not everything's gelled as it was. Inter, I've picked Onana, Bastoni, Acerbi, Darmian, Dimarco, Dumfries, Brozovic, Chanaloglu, Barrea, Martinez and Lukaku. Brozovic is of course replacing Mkhitaryan, who is in doubt to play. And I've picked Lukaku over Dzeko, as I think Dzeko coming on as a substitute could confuse City. Lukaku, City have played against him before, they know sort of how to deal with his style, and they wouldn't have to adapt too much, whereas then bringing Dzeko on, once the City legs are getting tired, obviously it's going to be a high intensity game, then bringing Dzeko on, who offers something different, they'd have to quickly adapt whilst being tired, which is where they could potentially get caught out with a late winner from Inter. Whereas if you started Dzeko, the City defenders would be fresh, ready to adapt straight away, and could maybe figure that out. And then Lukaku's not so much of an impact sub that they would need to sort of adapt to and get caught out by. So I think having Dzeko on the bench would help maybe nick a late winner when City are getting a little bit more fatigued. So we've sort of gone over every little bit, the semi-finals, the lineups, how I think it's going to go. My prediction as the final scoreline is 3-1 to City. I do think they're going to dominate. I'm not sure. I don't watch as much of Inter because it's a Serie A team, but from what I see of City week in, week out, they're just incredible. And I do think on the day, quality is going to show. The game is tonight, very highly anticipated, so regardless of who the winner is, it's been a brilliant UCL season. And I do think regardless of what happens, whether or not City win, they will be dominating Europe for the next few years. And I do think that if it doesn't come this year, it's got to come at some point. It's inevitable. It's got to happen for them at some point. I do think tonight's the night, but if not, they're going to have plenty more chances in the coming years. That is where I'm going to end the podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be back soon with another one.